Calcutta Club USA held Sanskriti 2016, its second annual book fair on April 24th in collaboration with the Boston Pledge. This event was a fusion of literature, art, and theater. The event had four major components: a multicultural book fair, an art contest, an ensemble of conversations with renowned writers, and two award winning Indian plays. Authors spoke over video conference directly from India and other locations and were projected in the auditorium with bidirectional audio video. Eminent participants included renowned vocal artist Bratati Bandyopadhyay, novelist Dr. Amit Chaudhary, socialite and columnist Shobha Dey, poet Srijato, and technologist and biographer Dr. Sam Pitroda. The chief guest of the event was Mr. Arun Singh, Ambassador of India. Here are a few glimpses of the event.
And in the process, create stories which I enjoyed when he was only 7 years old. But when I read his new novels, the fiction, non-fiction, from The Sublime Address to the recent one, Calcutta and Odysseus Abroad, I see that strain of thought. There's ability to Amit, a very, very special person. As you know, he's a winner of many, many awards from all over the world. Particularly the one I'm proud of is one that he got from Los Angeles Times for his great book, The Freedom Song, as well as his first book that he wrote when he was in his 20s, I'm trying to remember the name, The Strange and the Sublime Address.
The inspiration behind that book, right? So, the first book, my first novel is quite a short book. I could call it a novella, which is a very popular form, not so much in the English language, but in other languages, in French, in Bengali, in Kannada, in German. Yeah, it's almost a popular form in every culture except the Anglophone cultures for some reason. I was very interested instinctively, right at the beginning, with writing this short novel about nothing, almost about nothing. I mean, there would be no plot in it as such. The only thing I wanted to write, I think, the idea that
novelist and a columnist, she contributed profusely to South Asian literature. She was born as Shobha Rajadyaksh on 7th of January 1947 and grew up in Maharashtra. Shobha completed her early education from Queen Mary School, Mumbai, and later received a degree in psychology from St. Mary's College, also in Mumbai.
Book late in the afternoon, it could go well into late evening or even late at night. And for me, a book is the ultimate creative indulgence, whereas a column requires a certain discipline, it requires a certain commitment, because like I said, it's a sacred space. I take it very seriously. I've been a columnist for 45 years. I've never missed a deadline. I'm pretty proud of that. Amazing, and for the sari itself, to do justice to 6 years draped around you, it is a very flattering garment. But I still feel that, and I stick by that the Indian body type, or let's put it this way, the Asian body type is better suited to carrying off a sari than perhaps the Western body frame, which is fantastic for trouser suits, it's fantastic for jeans. It's not all that fantastic for saris. There's no insult implied whatsoever in that.
All right, next question.
Next, I have a very perhaps an individualistic look at what feminism means to me. To me, it very simply means equality. So I would speak up as much for a person, a man who was being, if there was a gender issue which discriminated.
Seek to do with India, with your roots, with your culture connectedness, and to spread the message related to India in the societies where you are now ensconced is very much a part of what we are trying to do. And the diaspora in the US is interesting because, of course, it's increasing in size. Many of you may have heard that we now have about 3.5 million people of Indian origin in the United States. Interesting engagement, and many of you are perhaps a product of that process, is that today we have about 130,000 Indian students in US universities. Not Indian origin students, but Indian students. Indian origin students are additional to that. And for these 130,000 Indian students in US universities, we are paying every year $4.5 billion just as tuition fees to US universities. And of course, there's much more expenditure in terms of staying and food. And $4.5 billion is not a figment of my imagination. You multiply about 150,000 by 30,000, which is the average fees in a US educational institution. And that's the figure that you find for yourself, and it is the figure we find in trade statistics. So I think with this very impressive engagement of Indian people with the United States, it's interesting to see how the Indian diaspora in its activities here is both trying to retain its identity and also merge with the wider society. So I find there are different kinds of events. There are some professional events. The people in the hotel industry do their professional events several times a year, and a big event at the end of the year. The doctors do their professional events. The engineers do their professional events. Sometimes there are events related to particular university or sets of universities. So the Indian Institute of Technology, their alumni do a set of events. The Aligarh Muslim University does a separate set of events. And the large number of events that are state-based or region-based or linguistically based. Again, giving people a sense of connectedness, of identity. But what I also find very, very interesting is when there are literature-based events. Because one of the challenges we find is that now there is growing engagement between India and the United States. And at the top policy levels in both the countries, there is understanding of each other. There is understanding of what we need to do to take the relationship forward. But at the wider societal level, I think both in the US and in India, there is not sufficient understanding of the other country. And therefore, literature-based events focused more on understanding of our own society and other society will help us develop that understanding to a far greater extent. And we need to do that because, as I mentioned, the India-US relationship is becoming stronger. If I just look at the last year or so, the Prime Minister was here in September 2014. He was in September 2015. He had very, very significant engagements with the US leadership, with the business community here, with representatives of the diaspora. In Madison Square Garden, you may have seen or heard, there were more than 20,000 people who were there in September 2014 to welcome the Prime Minister along with representatives from the US Congress. And similarly, last year at the SAP Center in San Jose, again we had about 20,000 people along with representatives from the Hill and the administration to welcome the Indian Prime Minister. So with that, and then just about a couple of weeks ago, the US Secretary of Defense was in India. And in the area of defense, we are moving away from a buyer-seller relationship to co-production, co-development of technology. Just about a week ago, our finance minister was in the US. And in his engagements with the US business community, I could hear clearly that the business community in the US was very upbeat about India. They felt that at this moment, when the world was going through different kinds of economic challenges, there were global headwinds, India was providing a moment of opportunity. Last year, FDI in India went up by 60%, when FDI, the rest of the world, has been declining. A representative of a private equity firm said that in the past 1 year, there was more commercial real estate leasing expansion in the city of Bengaluru than in New York and London combined. And this is just a reflection of the energy that is there in India, based on which we hope to deepen the economic and other aspects of the relationship between India and the US. As we work on this, it is very important that Indian origin communities based here build on their understanding of India and their exposure to the United States to deepen the partnership between India and the United States. And it is really in that spirit that I am happy to interact with all of you here and wish you the best in your endeavors. And we at the Embassy are available to you for any support and facilitation that we can provide. Thank you very much.